Hello and welcome back to the Full Tank with Phil YouTube channel, where once again we are talking trucks. And this week we finally have a race to talk about. That's right, all the preseason stuff is behind us, and Daytona is right in front of us. Valentine's Day, Friday night. If you're watching this, it's probably Friday already. So hopefully you got taken care of the gifts for the significant other, and you are getting locked in to watch the trucks on Friday night. So before we get into, any of the bets that we're going to be talking about, we just have to give that classic disclaimer when we get to Daytona. There's always the risk of the big one. Okay. And that's why we don't like to bet too much. I'm going to be throwing a decent amount of bets out there for you to chew on. I'd like to get your feedback on them as well. But you want to make sure you're tempering yourself. You want to make sure you're controlling. You're not going too crazy, because Daytona, it could get you. And we don't want to be digging out of a hole early in the season because we just went ham. So keep that in mind as we get into some of these conversations. But it's kind of hard not to, because you're just so excited. Shot out of a cannon, first race of the year. I get it. So let's get into some of these bets. And I'll say this. I've got a wide variety of markets here. We got a group bet that we're going to talk about. I got a couple head-to-heads. I know some people in the gambling community don't like betting head-to-heads on drafting tracks. I understand it. I'm someone who does. So I'll throw a couple out there for you. Then we've got a new market that's available on Caesars. And then we'll talk about a couple of the top 5 bets that I like, and, kind of a ladder play, maybe top 5 and a outright winner. I am playing this a little bit differently than I am the Cup Series, because in the Cup Series, we say, yeah, anybody has a chance to win when we go to these types of tracks. You could still say that is technically the case for the Truck Series, but history would tell you that that is actually not the case. The bigger name drivers have really been the ones to walk away as champions in the Truck Series at Daytona. Sanchez and Zane Smith, Ben Rhodes, Grant Enfinger, Austin Hill, Johnny Sauter, Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick. I mean, these are big, big names in that year. So that's why it's like, oh, we would love to play some like really long shots to have a little fun. But if we want to be smart about it, the bigger names guys usually survive the wreckage. And there's a lot of what I'll call like inexperienced drivers in this field. So they're kind of, I don't know, the volatility is going to be there. Just who's that, in my opinion, the guy is going to be able to survive all of that. Veteran presence, I guess, if you're looking for a winner from an outright perspective. So we're not going to be playing those longer odds and having those talks in this clip. Let's get to the first one. It's a group bet that I like. And I'm typically not a group bet guy. All right. But let me give you the breakdown of how I arrived at this bet in this conversation. I love wintherace.info as a source for helping you get a lay of the land for who's good, who's not, how to start handicapping races and betting on them. And Tyler Ankrum is at the top of their pre-qualifying ranking. So I got to trust my guys, Ryan Stevens and Greg Mathern over there, who are putting these together for us. So I see him at the top of the board. I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? This is interesting. Let me see what we got. And plus 260 to win Group C. All of these bets, by the way, we're talking are on Caesar Sportsbook. They really came to play with a large option of bets. And you might see some other books come to play on race day, but Caesars has been, really hitting it hard for the trucks out of the gate. So we're sticking with them on all these bets. To see him at plus 260, that got my attention. The fact that he is ranked number 1 on the pre-qualifying on Win the Race, that got my attention. So I dug into him myself a little bit. And at Daytona, in the last 5 races, he's a lot of experience here, which I like. He's in the McAnally 18 truck, which I like. 1 top 10, 2 top 15s. That doesn't really wet your whistle all that much, but you have to lower your standards a little bit at this type of track. He's 5th in driver rating in the active driver list. So that is something that really gets my attention. When you expand out a little bit to the last 3 years on super speedways, so that's Daytona and Talladega, he is 2 top 10s and 4 top 15s in that time span. So 4 top 15s, pretty consistent out of 6 races. I like that. Good average finish numbers there. That's someone who could win a head-to-head matchup for me, in really good equipment too. So those parts right there on the Ankrum side, I like, right? His equipment, his average finish history on super speedways, and the fact that they got him ranked pretty high on Win the Race. I like that. Looking at who he's going up against, Lane Riggs, 2 races at Daytona last year, full-time ride at front row, and his average finish is 30.5. 33rd at Daytona, 28th at Talladega. Then you look at Johnny Sauter, and I'm going to talk about him again in a second, but Johnny Sauter is somebody that I saw him on the sheet. I saw he was driving the 66 Thor Sport truck. I was like, let's go. Like, I want to get behind that in some way, shape, or form. But digging into it a little bit further, I was like, ooh, not really the finishes that I would have hoped to throw my money behind him. And I'm going to talk about him again in the next conversation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then Parker Kligerman, another part-time guy, kind of going into it just because it's this race, Daytona. He's got the ability to get things in a good spot in a super speedway race. But again, I'd rather take that more consistent full-time driver and better equipment, full-time equipment. So that full-time or plus 260 number, those odds really speak it to me for that 18 truck. So that's how we landed on Tyler Ankrum in a group bet. And I didn't think I was going to be kicking off the season with a bet like that, but here we are. You know, that's how you know it's Daytona, baby. We're really getting after it. All right. So Ankrum to start us off. Now, let me bring that actually back up for a second. I would be remiss if I didn't say it's Valentine's Day. And I feel like if you're someone who loves the sponsors and the die-cast looks of things, how can we not talk about Lane Riggs driving the Loves car or the Loves truck on Valentine's Day? You almost have to throw a flyer in there for him to win the race, right? On Valentine's Day, driving the Loves truck, probably have to do that, right? I know that goes against the bet we just threw out there, but hey, if you're a person who loves the good luck for the sponsorships, there's one right there. Kind of got another Valentine's Day vibe here for this next one. It's a head-to-head matchup, and we're fading Johnny Sauter yet again. And it's Caden Honeycutt, right? Who's doing well? Well, Honey. It's Honeycutt. And he's taking on Johnny Sauter. And this one, again, was drawing my attention because of Johnny Sauter. I saw his name on the list, and I was like, yeah, Johnny Sauter. Again, 66 truck. But dug in a little bit further. He starts really well at Daytona. I remember this specifically. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where he started second in qualifying. He looked great, super fast, was up there, maybe not leading a bunch of laps, but he was fighting for position. He is someone who's just got this history. This is his track. He's got so many good finishes here in his career. But recently, even with starting really far up towards the front, he has not been able to get good finishes and cross the line on the lead lap. It's just really been dismal for Johnny Sauter. It's not what we want when we're talking about a head-to-head matchup, right? You're looking for somebody a little bit more consistent, and that's not been him recently. I know that I'll call him a legend here. I mean, Johnny Sauter at Daytona, 15 career starts, 3 wins, 4 top fives. That's damn good. But more recently, it's been rough finishes. All right. 4 of his last 5 races are outside the top 20, and his last 3 are 27th. That's from the pole 3 races ago. Then last year, or 2 years ago, 34th after starting 36. So just a bad race there, driving the 47 truck. But then he was driving for the 45 last year. The Nice truck started second, as I said, and finished 29th. So he couldn't keep it. He crashed, led 24 laps. So like I said, he got my attention in the head-to-head matchup. But after digging a little bit further, I was like, ooh, I don't like that. Let's go to the flip side. What does Caden Honeycutt have to offer for us in this matchup? Well, how about 0 Daytona experience? Yeah, 0. Not even in lower series. So that's a bit concerning, maybe. But if you look at his Talladega experience, it's actually not too bad. 11th place finish and a 17th place finish there. So it's not like driving on a drafting track is going to completely screw this guy up. No, as a matter of fact, he's, in 2 starts, small sample size, pretty decent, right? Keep it mid-teens. I think you win this matchup because I don't really trust Sauter to put a full race together. Caden Honeycutt starting a season in a full-time ride in that Nice truck, in that 45 truck that Sauter put in starting from the front row just a year ago. So now in this full-time ride, I think he's setting up for a good season as Honeycutt, and I think it starts at Daytona. So give me Honeycutt over Sauter, and I hate to do it to my boy, Johnny Sauter, but I think Caden Honeycutt is going to come out of the gate swinging. Let's go to another head-to-head matchup here, and this is another, I guess, situation where we're taking somebody that I trust over somebody that I don't, and it's Ben Rhodes. Talk about needing to come out of the gate swinging. It's this guy, Ben Rhodes. Struggled last year mightily. We know this. And the struggle started at Daytona. He had a 30th place finish at this race last year. But if you are looking for someone who is consistent at Daytona, if that's not an oxymoron, it's kind of Ben Rhodes. Like he's really that guy. Career average finish is 11.8 in 9 starts. His last 5 races at Daytona, 1 win, 2 top 5s, 3 top 15s. Really solid there. And then if you go to the last 3 seasons on super speedways, 6 races total, 3 top 5s, 4 top 15s with a 13.7 average finish. So again, no one's going to be able to win every time they're out there at Daytona, but this guy is consistently very good at putting it up and around that top 10. And that's what we're looking for in a head-to-head matchup. Now, we'll go to the flip side here. Daniel Hemrick. I don't know if I can trust him yet. I don't. He hasn't driven a truck since 2016. At Daytona in that year, 2016, he finished 8th, driving for BK Racing. Great. He's hopping in the 19 truck where Eckes was very good at Daytona. McAnally, I already mentioned their prowess with the 18 truck in Ankrum. Obviously, I like them. I just don't know what I got in Hemrick yet. And, Daytona isn't going to tell us whether he has it or doesn't, but I'd rather take the sure thing or the devil we know rather than the devil we don't in Hemrick. So I'm going to go with Rhodes in this matchup. The fact that it's minus 115, I like it. And Rhodes is somebody that I could see winning this race. So these two will probably be around each other a lot if, things work out the way they should. So it'll be a fun one to follow. And I'm going to take Rhodes in that matchup. Now, last couple of years, we've had the NASCAR Betting Preview Show podcast with my buddy Derek Yoder. And one of the things that Derek and I used to say all the time was, man, I really wish trucks had top 10s. And Caesars is giving us something. They are giving us something in a new market this year for trucks where I saw the listing, it said top 10. I was like, what? What they're doing is they're basically taking 2 drivers and putting them together in a parlay. So both drivers have to hit the top 10. But I would be, kicking myself if I didn't bring this up in the first episode of the year here to say, hey, let's give that market a little bit of love. And we've got 2 Cup drivers coming down, both racing for their respective Cup teams in trucks. Spire Motorsports has Michael McDowell and Justin Haley. And I think that this is a pretty solid, a fun bet to take here with these guys both finishing in the top 10. The odds are not great. All right. The odds plus 125. I should be getting more as a gambler for that. So if you're scared off by that, I fully understand it. I wanted to call this out for the reason of this is now a market to bet on. And I think that's great. And I want to show a little love, but also these are 2 very capable super speedway drivers in the Cup series. And now we've got Haley dropping down, racing the 7 truck, that all-star Spire truck. And Michael McDowell, he clearly wanted some track time as well. So he's dropping in there doing the 07 truck. And I just think that this is going to work out really well for Spire. I mean, even if these 2 have a rough race, it's good to have them getting track time. You can bet on them in the Cup Series race on Sunday for the 500. But looking at all of the lists or the different options that you had here for this top 10 parlay that they're offering you, these 2, I wanted to get something on them because they are Cup Series regulars dropping down in decent equipment. This is not a slouchy type of situation. And they're both very good super speedway drivers, specifically at Daytona for both of them. So I like it. I like it a lot. Top 10 plus 125. Like I said, wish I was getting a little bit more, but beggars can't be choosers kind of deal, All right. So let's move on now to talk about a couple guys finishing in like top 5 and maybe sprinkle a little something on them to win the race. Like I said, bigger name drivers have worked out pretty well winning the race. But first guy we'll talk about is our defending champion. It's Ty Majeski, and his numbers are plus 1,200 to win the race and to finish in the top 5, plus 200. Now, I actually really like the top 5 number here at 2-1 because Majeski, he's just been getting better and better at this racetrack. 4 starts, Daytona, he's got 2 top 10s. His last 3 finishes were 15th, 6th, and 7th. So just kind of putting things together. He's ready to break through. A top 5 would be something he hasn't done here before. And that's why I'm, more leaning towards the top 5 number. And I typically do that in the trucks, but at Daytona especially. But Majeski, wouldn't it be, the reason I threw his outright number in here is because it would just be poetic for him to win the championship, come back, and win the Daytona race to start the season right away. So I like it, but the top 5 number is really what I'm calling out here because he's been building to this. A 6th place finish, a 7th place finish. He's been hovering around that top 5, and 2-1, he's a really, really solid driver where if you're looking at the list of the odds, he's further down than some of the other guys. I'd rather take him for a top 5 than some of the other guys a little bit higher up than him. So Ty Majeski, current champ, give him a look here for Daytona because he's been working towards something, and I want to be a part of that when he finally gets it. The last driver that I'm going to talk about as far as a bet, and then I got another guy just to keep your eye on. But the last driver I'm going to mention here is Tanner Gray, driving the Tricon, number 15. His brother kind of graduated to the Xfinity Series, right? We got Corey Heim. He's the one that gets all the press for Tricon. They got 2 new teammates, the rookies, Gio Giro and Tory Breidinger. Tory Breidinger. So Tanner Gray is kind of the guy that's left out. And I think he's going to try to make a real statement here at Daytona. His numbers are really good for the gambler. Plus 450 for a top 5. I am very interested in this. 5 starts at Daytona. He's got 2 top 5s and 3 straight top 16s. So really good numbers there. Plus 450 for a guy who's done it twice in 5 races. You're not going to find that anywhere on the list. You just simply can't. I tried. It's not going to happen. 3 straight lead lap finishes as well. That is so important. And when you're looking at kind of the splits between Talladega and Daytona, Tanner's better at Daytona. He is. And so I want to take advantage of him now. I don't want to miss out on him, have him do well, and then use this as a reason to bet on him in Talladega and, have some inconsistency at Talladega bite me. Then I'm hurting 2 different ways. I want to jump on him at Daytona, and that 35-1 number, that's worth a sprinkle for sure. I do, because you got to assume Corey Heim's going to be up there doing his thing, and he has proven that he can run on drafting tracks and run well. So Tanner Gray, I think, is a sneaky top 5 pick and super sneaky outright to throw in there for fun. So that's the last bet that I have for you in the Daytona best bets. Now, the last guy that I'll mention, I could not find a way yet to work him into, the best bet segments here, but maybe on race day, I'll have a way to have him on my card. It's Matt Crafton. 5 of the last 6 Daytona races, he has finished in the top 15. And so that's including 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s. Matt Crafton, I'm sure he's going to be driving that neon yellow truck, the Menards truck. I want something with Matt Crafton. I just couldn't figure out a way to place a bet on him, whether it was a head-to-head matchup. You could take his top 5 number, but he's only done it once, but he's been consistent. So there's consistent drivers. That's usually where I like to go towards, matchups or group bets. I just couldn't find a good dance partner. So if you're someone who plays daily fantasy, for example, keep Matt Crafton around in your head, because he is someone that, he could come alive and just be there. You're going to be able to follow him nice and easy in that yellow truck. So I'll hopefully find a way to work him onto the card. But 5 of 6 top 15s at Daytona, very, very good for that 88 truck. All right, so Thanks for hanging with me. Hopefully, these are good conversations for you to have, listen to, and let me know what you think. If you got some bets that I didn't talk about that you're on, let me know at Full Tank Phil on X and Instagram. Good luck at Daytona, and we'll see you next week.